Hello, I'm Rick Stivers. I'd like to welcome you to Young Martin's Reels. Today's project is going to be this Shakespeare Alpha. It's a 40 size. And this particular, I may have already done an Alpha before, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to do this reel, and there's a reason behind it. This reel once belonged to my late brother, Ben. And I'm going to service it, clean it up, and get it going nice again, put some new line on it and stuff, and send it to his son, my nephew, Brian. We're going to do this reel, and then in a separate video, I'm going to do this Zebco Adventurer. I'm going to do that one and send it to Brian as well. This one's pretty bound up. It's a little bit on the rough side. Now, are these high-end reels? No, they're not. The fact of the matter is, when Ben and I were young, we used to do a lot of fishing. And he told me years later that he kind of got burned out on it. So when it came time to him doing some fishing, he didn't invest a lot of money on his fishing equipment. He just fished just every now and then, like when he went down to the cabin at the lake. And so he didn't invest a whole lot of money in his fishing equipment. So this is what he bought. He bought this Shakespeare Alpha and that Zebco Adventurer. And those were his reels in his later part of his life. So, Brian, I hope you want these. I haven't asked you about it personally, but I'm hoping that you'd like to have them. I'm going to service them and get them on their way to you. So, let's start off. We took the spool off, and I'm going to take off the clicker cog and the spacer, and we will service the drag washers later, although they look like... Looks like this reel actually had very little use. I don't think he actually fished it much at all. So let's go ahead and see about taking the handle off. Okay, it looks like it's going to be, yep, just a screw off. Okay, I'll take that off. I'm going to back this thing out a little bit and see if we can keep things more in frame for this video. If I need to get in close to something specific, I will do so. But other than that, we're going to try to stay about where I am right now. And, okay, take that screw out. This back cover should come off, which should reveal this screw, and this screw. There's a good possibility this screw could be different from the rest. I'm going to try something here, folks. I haven't done it before. Let's see if this will work first before I even try it. Nope, wrong size. My grandson bought me a Milwaukee cordless ratchet for Christmas, and I'm going to try using it on some of the stuff that actually has number 2 Phillips on it and see if we can use it to remove the screws on those. I don't plan to use it so much for putting them in, but I do plan to use it for taking them out. But these are size 1 screws instead of size 2, and I don't have a size 1 bit at the moment. And so we'll just try this out at a later date. Okay, turns out all 3 screws are the same. So let's take this side cover off. Okay, and that bushing wants to stay. It doesn't want to let go. Let's see if we can hold that in. I don't really want to pull the, there we go, pull the bushing off. And we'll shave this down a little bit so that bushing can come off. And slide that over there. And all right, this one is not going to come off until we take out the screw for the crosswind block. Okay, set that screw over there. Pull out the axle shaft. Now we can remove the main gear. Take out the crosswind block. I can take out the crosswind gear. That now frees us up to come around over here. Remove the locking screw for the pinion nut. And let's see if I grabbed the right nut driver for the center. I did not. There we go. Okay, take that nut off, set it over to the side. We can now take Where'd that go? There it is. Okay, there's the locking plate there. I'll set that over to the side, and that brings us down to the pinion and the anti-reverse, and there's our anti-reverse override. Flip it down like so, and that'll keep it, it'll allow it to rotate both directions. When you flip it the other direction, like so, I'll tell you what, let's zoom in on this a little bit. Okay, we got a cam lock right here. When you flip it this way, that locks this over so that it can't engage. Okay, when we flip it back the other way, cam lock goes the other way, and now, see, it'll come in and it will lock right there. And this is a single lock. It will only lock once every full rotation. Okay, which means this is going to have this trigger on the bail right here, and we'll have to clean that up a little bit and get that working again the way it's supposed to. All right, should we take this off? I'm going to suggest that you don't. If you need to, you can flip this around to here, like so. It gets us out of the way, and now you can remove this screw and this screw, and we can take this sleeve off right here, like so. There's our anti-reverse assembly, okay? And there's a washer that goes on top of it, a spacer washer. And now you can take out these two screws. We'll go ahead and do it since that's kind of what I do here. Let's go ahead and zoom back out. You don't need to be that close to see me loosen up and remove these two screws. All right, there's those two screws. This pops out here. And you got to get it out from underneath that anti-reverse. There's the bearing. There's the bearing retainer. Okay, and we'll be cleaning that up. I'll clean both those two up. That's an excellent opportunity for those. And this guy, to use my parts cleaner. Is it necessary? Nah, you don't need a parts cleaner to be able to do this. What I do need, though, if you look, I don't know if you can see it. Let's zoom way in. Okay, if you look, see this edge where it's flared out? Okay, that's from over-tightening of the handle. Okay, and what we're gonna do is I'm gonna take my file and we're gonna ever so carefully file that down so that that bushing can come off. Now, some people out there, Chris for example, will take this piece and they will chuck it up on this side right here. They'll chuck it up on a drill and spin it and use sandpaper to cut this away, which we can do that. If you would like to see that, let's do it. Let's back out a little bit. Let's tighten this down. I want to be careful not to take it too far. Okay, once you get it to spin up, you can take the file. Like so. See if that's enough. See, that's enough. That's all it took. Okay. And I lost the shim washer over there. Okay, that allows us to take that off. Like so. And now we'll remove that without doing any damage to the main gear. I'm going to throw these in the parts cleaner real quick, clean them up, and we'll be back to you in just a minute. All right, these parts have been through the parts cleaner now. I got them cleaned up, got the bearings cleaned out. I got the dirt and grease out of it, and we're going to be oiling that good. We're going to be putting this one back in. But before we do any of that, we want to take a look at this rotor and see what we can do with that. It actually trips very nicely, so I'm thinking we might not even take this apart all the way. We are going to take this roller off over here, although it does turn. I don't know how well you can see it, but it does turn. So we're just going to take that off, clean it, and lubricate it. And I don't think he hardly ever used this reel, so I don't really think it needs a whole lot, except to go through and just kind of get a good dusting off on it. And I'm going to suggest that if you have one of these can be somewhat cumbersome to try to get back together if you take these, I'm trying to think of what they call this thing. It's a sure cast or something like that. But anyway, you trip it with your lever finger over here, like so, and it pops it open like that. And then when you wind it, it's supposed to trip back closed. It's really pretty simple. But let's go ahead and remove this roller off of the bail. And let's get that part cleaned up. And the rest of it, I think, is going to be okay. Yeah. This actually looks pretty nice inside. And I think we can take this bushing off. Wipe that down too. And we'll wipe this out. Make sure there's no dirt or grime in there. The same thing with the roller. Yeah, it needs a little wipe off. There, now the roller looks fine. It's got this plastic insert bushing that goes in it. Let's wipe out the inside of that as well. And there is an indented washer on this side over here, and we'll wipe that out as well. And all this is ready to put back now. So here we go. Let's reassemble this. We're going to put a little grease on the post here. And people who fish the beach don't like putting grease on these. People who fish saltwater or freshwater don't mind at all, because we're not getting into all that sand and dirt stuff that you get out there on the beach. So let's go ahead and grease this again where the bushing is. Slip this on. Okay, then on top of that, we're going to put this washer. All that slides back over top of this, and it screws back on. And that takes care of the roller for this. Yeah, rolls easy. That's good. Bail trips nicely. If you're concerned about it, what you can do is put a little oil here and here, here, and that one's covered. So exercise a little bit to get that oil down into it, and that'll take care of that. I'm going to recommend that you not take this apart. They get kind of complicated. It's got a spring that fits down over here. It's got a spring that fits in over here, and they really get complicated to get back together. And it's very difficult for me to even show you how to do it. So I think I'm just going to leave this particular one alone, since this was my brother's, and I really don't want anything to happen to it. We're going to start putting all this back together. Okay, we're going to start off with the crosswind gear, and we will take and put some grease down in here around the post that it rides on, and then we're going to grease up the gear itself and the face of it, and we're going to set it down inside here with the post to the rear, like that. Then we'll put the crosswind block in. We're going to put some grease down inside the slot on it, and then slide one end of it up underneath this rod over here. And I may have to use a pair of needle nose pliers for this to get hold of it so you can see it. Okay, yeah, slides up under like that. That way when this slides forward, it's going to pull that forward. Okay, make sure that that's sitting down on top of that post. I think at this point, let's go ahead and put our pinion back in with our main bearing. And what we're going to do is we're going to grease this main bearing. Oil the main bearing. And then we're going to slide this in. Now look, there's a thick, heavy washer. There's a sleeve here. And then there's these two thin locking plates. Okay, those are cams. Okay, see those two cams? I found one of those in my box over here yesterday and didn't even know what it went to. And now today I see one and I know exactly where it goes now. So let's go ahead. So you've got the bearing, the two cam lobes, this anti-reverse sleeve, and then this thick heavy washer. And when you slide this in, it has to go over top. Well, tell you what, we're going to have to take all this back off here and put in just the bearing first, because we have to put in the bearing retainer. Okay. Let's get this to go down inside like that. There we go. Make sure the bearing goes all the way down. Then we can slide this bearing retainer back on here like this and put the screws in. All right, once you've got the bearing retainer back on, you've got this shim. You got to get that. Hang on, let me make sure I got the right shim. Yeah, you got this shim. Get that shim put on over top of the bearing. Then it's going to go these two cam lobes. Those are for your, basically it allows you to back the bail up. Okay. Then it's going to go this anti-reverse ring with the wire spring. On top of that, it's going to go this thick heavy washer. Then goes the rotor itself with the rotor lock plate. On top of that will go the rotor locking nut. Okay, it appears that what I didn't realize is that this nut on this thing, if you tighten it down too tight, it locks up the rotor. It pushes pressure up on the main bearing and causes the whole thing to bind. So what you do is you tighten this down until it's snug, where you feel it bind, and then back it off just enough to allow it to turn well. And that's not quite enough yet. Like that right there should be enough. It is. Okay, and then put your locking screw in. And that will lock it down so that it can't tighten or loosen anymore. And that will keep it right where it needs to be with the proper preload. All right. I've never seen that before, so if somebody sees something different, wants to let me know that I'm messing up, go right ahead. But that takes care of it. It now fits quite well on there. All right, next we're going to come back and grease up our main gear. And before I do too much, I want to take and put some grease on the back side back here so that I can put these two shim washers back on that were on there. And the grease should hold it in place. Now, we can come back and grease up the main gear. And it doesn't do you any good to slap a lot of grease on that inside in there. The speed with which the reel will rotate is not going to be so great as to create a lot of centrifugal force to sling that grease out back onto the gear. So it's not going to do you a lot of good to pack that center with grease. All right, we've got that set. We're going to take and oil this shaft right here where it's going to slide into this bushing. We'll go ahead and slide that in. Get it to mesh up with the pinion gear. At that point, we're ready to install the axle shaft. We'll oil that. Slide it in through the pinion. Rotate it around to distribute that oil. And then when we get down here, we've got to get it to line up with the flat on the oscillation block. And then line up the hole like that. And we're ready to put the screw in. Now we're going to come back, add some oil to the shaft here. Slide the side cover on. And then put the 3 screws back in. Let's put the handle back on. There we go. Now we're going to service, well, before we do that, let's go ahead and put the click back on. Set that support in there, and let's put our spacer on. Slide it down all the way like that, and that's going to give this spool of spacing. Now let's go ahead and take out the drag washer retaining ring. Then we're going to lift out the drag washers, and they appear to be, well, I got different ones. Okay, yeah, it's kind of dirty in there. That looks a lot better. Okay, here's going to be the stack up. Okay, it's going to be a friction drag washer, followed up by a keyed drag washer, followed up by a hard friction drag washer, followed up by the eared washer, followed up by another felt drag washer, followed up by a last keyed washer, and then the ring will go back in. Okay, so let's go ahead and stack this in. I'm not sure that these look like felt, but they're not. They're a hard fabric. I don't think it's going to need any oil. So let's put that one in, then we'll stack in the keyed, then the hard, followed up by this eared, and it's got to go in those little notches on each side, followed up by this last one here, and then the last keyed washer goes in. And with those all installed, you should be able to come back now and work this snap ring back in. There we go. And all of this line is going to get stripped off, and I'm going to reset it up with 10-pound test. Let's put some oil on the clicker. And let's see if the clicker works. Come on, get in there. No. Flip these around this way. Now, flip this one around that way. Put him on, and then put this one on the top. Okay, now let's see what we got. Nothing. Okay, because this does not appear that this spring is doing anything. Okay, so there's no strength to that spring at all. So let's go ahead take it out and see if we can do something to tighten that spring up a bit. All right. There it is. Okay. I believe that we can take and pull it in opposite directions and kind of stretch it a little bit to tighten it. Okay, what I did is I took that spring and pulled it out on each side just so it would grab better. See how, if you look in here, okay, what was happening before, when you would touch this, it would just kind of go and it would just stay. So what I did is I took the spring and I pulled it back the opposite way so that it would hold tension against this, okay? And we'll go ahead and put some oil on it now. Make sure that it stays okay. And the spring was just kind of sprung. So I tightened it down like that. And now, when you put it on, and let's see, let's put this back the way it originally was and see if it works fine. I think it probably will. I think it was just that spring was sprung. Get those parts back on there like so. Flip this down. Nope, that washer needs to be underneath it. Don't know what the schematic shows, but it definitely works much better if this washer is under. Then goes the clicker cog. Then goes our spacer, like so, and then on goes the spool, and here. That's the way it should sound when the drag goes out. Okay, I'm gonna wipe the drag knob off. I'm gonna put a drop or two of oil up inside it because there's a spring up in here and we want that spring to stay healthy. And now slip this on. There we go. Oh, it's got good drag. Okay, loosen it up a little bit. There we go. Yeah, it's got really good strong drag. Okay, I don't need that spool. I thought I might need that for the spring in it, but it didn't. All right, let's wipe this down. There you have the Shakespeare Alpha. Now I'm still going to strip the line off of this and put some new line on it for Brian. I'm hoping Brian wants this reel. I haven't talked to him about it, but I'm hoping he does. Put the anti-reverse on. There we go. There's, okay. That's a beautiful reel, working fine. I mean, it's not a high-dollar reel by any means. But it was my brother's reel. That's the big thing. It was my brother's, and I'm thinking that Brian would like to have it. I hope he does. If not, he can let me know. Oh, we ain't done. Thought we was done, but we're not. We still got to put this end cap back on. There we go. There we go. I don't know if any of you are familiar with my brother. He was actually a very talented individual. He's got several books. You can find them out there on Amazon, written by Ben Stivers. And they were science fiction fantasy books. He also, if you go out on YouTube, will find Ben Stivers painting, how-to paint tutorials, where he taught people how to do that. And I'm afraid COVID got him. And I do miss being able to joust with him periodically. We used to get into some rather interesting discussions periodically. And the world lost an interesting individual when we lost my brother. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, please hit the like button. If you didn't, hit the dislike button. Tell me what it is you didn't like about it. And if you'd like to see further videos like this, please subscribe. For now, that's Rick Stivers with Young Martin Reels, signing out.